Welcome to Working On It. I'm Dr. A and I'm a clinical psychologist aiming to make your life just a bit more manageable. Remember, the tools and the tidbits that you pick up on this channel are purely educational. They can't replace therapy, but with some practice, they can help you along in your daily life. So let's get started. Today, we will be talking about the importance of self-compassion. It sounds so hokey, it sounds so corny, but I'm here to give you a very quick reminder today of how important it is. I want you to think about the times that you've messed up, that you have, got into a bad pattern, that you have done something that you know you shouldn't have, or that you've just been in a really down, sad, troubled place. Not even of your doing necessarily. And I want you to think about how you've spoken to yourself. Do any of these sound familiar? I'm an idiot. I always do things like this. Nobody cares. Blah, 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 blah. Do any of these sound in the vicinity of the ways in which you talk to yourself? Speaking down to yourself, being nasty to yourself, truly pouring salt in the wound or kicking yourself when you're down. Can you think of any examples in your life? I'll give you a second. I can. Can you? Right. I want you to think when you have spoken to yourself that way. Now I want you to think about if a friend was having a really tough time and was really down and they came to you. Would you speak to them like this? Would you say, "What are you, a moron? Oh my God, you always do this. You're so stupid. You'll never be anything but this, blah, 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 blah." No. I bet you the answer is no, right? It would have to be a really specific situation. The way that we speak to ourselves and the way we really let ourselves have it, we would never speak that way to somebody that we care about. And as corny as it sounds, we have to be that person that we care about. Sometimes we speak that way to ourselves because things just feel so negative and we might as well throw ourselves under the bus there. Sometimes we speak that way to ourselves because we think we are going to learn a lesson and being kind to yourself won't teach us that lesson. Sometimes we speak that way because we think it'll, put a fire under our butt and it'll motivate us to do something different. But it doesn't do that, does it? No. It gets you lower and lower than the place you were. And not only now do you have the problem that you started with, but now your self-worth, what you see when you look in the mirror, what you think about yourself when you look at yourself, after a bunch of those times of talking to yourself like that pile up, what you see in yourself, your worth plummets. So not only now did you make that mistake, or not only did that horrible thing happen to you, but on top of that, you have eviscerated your own confidence, right? On top of feeling alone in something, you have truly made yourself alone because you don't even have yourself, right? Instead, I want you to just remember self-compassion always. Being kind to yourself, speaking nicely and respectfully to yourself and logically and emotionally, but in a nice, respectful, kind way, doesn't mean that you don't learn from what happened. There's always lessons to be taken. Being nice to yourself doesn't prevent that, right? It just keeps your confidence afloat enough to support yourself to get to a different place. Okay? So it does not, being kind and self-compassionate, does not prevent learning a lesson. And it also doesn't prevent motivation, right? We think if we don't really let ourselves have it, we're not going to be motivated to do something different. I hope that that's not the case. That is not usually the case. What happened is usually enough for us to learn. Now, maybe not on the first try, but we do tend to learn a lesson after several times. We don't need to be nasty to ourselves as the big motivator and the big incentive to change, right? Again, that doesn't lead us to change or motivate us. It just makes us feel lower and stoop lower than where we already were. okay? I want you to give that a think. Think about what troubling things have happened to you, whether they have happened, that was brought upon you, or mistakes that you made. And I want you to think, just in the last, let's say, 2 instances that you could think, how you spoke to yourself inside your head. And don't say, well, I didn't speak to myself anyway. Oh, yes, you did. We are constantly, our mind is like constantly, right? And a lot of it is an internal monologue. So what was that internal monologue saying about the person that you are? The whole of the person. What was it telling you that means about you, right? And I want you to determine, was the thing that your internal monologue was saying nasty? Was it mean? Was it harsh? And I want you to think, what would be a more self-compassionate way to speak to yourself when you're having a tough time? And if you have to write out a script, I know it sounds ridiculous, fine. Because if you see that it's a pattern, that something happens to you or you slip up and then you just annihilate yourself, then thinking of something to say different in that moment, it won't be good enough. I want you to prepare a little bit of a script, whether you write it down and you're in your head. A script doesn't have to be a page long. A script could be, these are the 3 sentences, or this is the 1 sentence that I'm gonna say, which is, I'm going to do better. I'm proud of myself for trying. That's something you could say, right? Or, I didn't bring this upon myself. Horrible things happen, and this was a horrible thing that happened to me. I feel really sad for myself that this happened, and I'm going to come up with a way to really, really nurture and take care of myself, right? Something along those lines, being nice to yourself, being your number 1 supporter, being your number 1 cheerleader, really standing beside yourself, again, as corny as that sounds, when something terrible happens, or something bad, or something pretty bad, in which would usually launch you into just mean things that you say to yourself. So I want you to just take away the phrase self-compassion today, and that's what I want you to focus on in the next week or 2. Okay? You got this. See you next time.